Good evening. I'd like to call to order the February 5th, 2024 Committee of the Whole and regular board meeting of the State College Area School District Board of Directors. If everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. I'd like to welcome everyone here with us this evening and anyone joining us remotely. Board members, with an agenda before you, are there any changes? Awesome. And next, I'd like to ask the board secretary to do a roll call of board members.
Dr. Anderson?
Here.
Dr. Bader?
Here.
Ms. Brandt?
Here.
Dr. Buck?
Here.
Dr. Crevecoeur?
Here.
Dr. Demo?
Here.
Mr. Colby?
Here.
Dr. Miller?
Here.
All right, moving on to communication items. I'd like to recognize an upcoming retirement this evening. Dorothy Markle is retiring in June with 27 years in the district. Dorothy started as a kitchen helper in 1995, switching to being a fall safe paraprofessional and a lunch aide at Ferguson Township Elementary for the next 15 years. Since 2002, she has worked as a para in a variety of areas at Ferguson Township, Panorama Village, Mount Nittany, and currently Easterly Parkway, where she is an instructional para. She also has worked in the SEAL program. Easterly Parkway Principal Meredith Henderson commended Dorothy for her commitment to students, saying, quote, "Dottie is a light in our school. Her work with students is exemplary, and her dedication to her career with children has served so many. Her compassion, kindness, and positivity provide some of our learners who have the least with the best possible kind of love and attention. She will be so incredibly missed at Easterly Parkway. We wish her the very best in her retirement." And the board also thanks Dorothy for her service and wishes her the best as well in her retirement. Next up, we have the superintendent update from Mr. Johnson.
Thank you. The last day of school is now June 5th. Whenever there is a snow day, we update the district and academic calendars to reflect any changes. Please reference these calendars for the current information. Hopefully we don't have any more snow days though. Knocking on wood here. We invite all SCASD K through 12 families to the SCASD Reads Family Night on Wednesday, February 7th from 6 to 8 p.m. The event will be a fun open house full of a wide variety of activities and, of course, reading. The location is at State College Area High School, and events will be taking place throughout the building. There will be prizes, special guests, readers, book bingo, crafts, online resources, karaoke, dancing, and more. Please park in the rear of the high school. We hope to see you there. We have some nice news to share about Park Forest Middle School technology teacher Tim Zerko. Recently, Tim was elected president of the National Network of State Teachers of the Year, Pennsylvania chapter, for a 3-year term. The chapter works with the Pennsylvania Department of Education by providing services and materials to select and to honor the Pennsylvania Teacher of the Year. Incidentally, Tim was a member of the class of 2018 finalist for the Teacher of the Year honor, which is how he began his association with this chapter. Congratulations, Tim. We're proud of you serving in such a prominent leadership role. So, congratulations.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Student Representative Hills will provide us an update from student achievement.
Thank you. Recently, State High junior Maya Dabrowski was one of the 25 students selected for the Elite Bill of Rights Institute 2024 Student Fellowship Program. From now through May, the students will meet online twice a month for discussions about political, social, and constitutional issues, sparked by assigned readings and individual research-based presentations. In June, they'll take capstone educational trips to Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. The Bill of Rights Institute is a nonpartisan nonprofit organization that works to advance civic and history education. Congratulations, Maya, and best wishes for you in the program.
Thanks. That's great. Next up, we have the legislative update. Jackie Huff isn't able to be with us tonight, but she did pass along a brief message to remind everyone that Governor Shapiro will reveal his budget proposal tomorrow. And all eyes are on education, especially to see if he includes vouchers for private schools, which is a contested and debated issue, and how much money he may propose the state put into such vouchers if they are there. So that's something to keep our eye on, and I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion coming out of it. Next up is Center Region Council of Governments. Peter and Gretchen, do you have anything for us tonight?
Do you have anything, Peter? I have just one thing. The executive director of the Council of Governments has announced his retirement, and so they now will establish a recruitment and screening committee for the next executive director of the Center Region COG. So that'll be a significant change coming for the Council of Governments. That's all.
Great, thanks very much. Okay. At this time, we have time for public comment. Each individual will be allotted up to 3 minutes for items related to board business that are not on the action items portion of the agenda. For action items, public comment will be held just prior to voting on that item as required by school code. If additional time is necessary, the board may consider reopening public comment after board business is completed or during the next meeting. As a reminder, public comment is a chance for community members to share their thoughts with the board. It is not a time for the board to answer questions or engage in conversations. You can always email the board at all-board@scasd.org. I also noticed we have a large number of people here tonight, and if we have several speakers this evening, we just kind of encourage you to consider if some statements have already been made and to try to prioritize new information to us, just so everybody might have an opportunity to speak. It's just a suggestion. If we have anybody here in present who would like to make a public comment, you want to come to the podium, and if you could just state your name and where you reside in the district, please.
My name is Heather Baruch Buter, and I live in State College Borough. My daughter, who is here tonight, is in first grade at Coral Street Elementary and attends SEAL at Easterly Parkway. I am here with a group. We represent over 50 caregivers who are concerned about the possible outsourcing of the SEAL program. As the board can understand, attending a nighttime meeting during the week is hard for families, but we have tried our best to have a strong presence. This is a statement I was asked to read from Kate Baldanza, whose children attend Radio Park Elementary. I am concerned about the possibility of SCASD outsourcing their program to a national chain. Right at School in particular does not have a good track record in offering safe and quality care. Princeton Public Schools in New Jersey transitioned their after-school program to Right at School in the 2023-2024 school year. Parents raised concerns that Right at School did not deliver the promised programming and would not allow the children outside. More concerning, the staff members did not meet the legally required ratio, staff members were constantly changing, and staff members were mean to the children. In response to these concerns, Right at School terminated their contract on the afternoon of September 22nd, leaving families without care the following day. The situation in the Princeton Public Schools was so chaotic that the superintendent resigned soon after. Princeton Public Schools are not the only district to have serious trouble with Right at School. A Right at School employee was arrested after an incident with a student at North End Elementary School in Cedar Grove, New Jersey in January 2022. In Chicago in 2018, a Right at School employee was arrested for sexually abusing a student several times during the after-school program. Champions, run by KinderCare, has its own public record of lawsuits. In 2018, KinderCare settled a case brought by the United States Attorney's Office for the District of Connecticut on behalf of parents when, quote, KinderCare refused to assist their children with insulin administration, end quote, in violation of the ADA. In October, KinderCare was made to pay more than $500,000 in restitution for labor law violations in Massachusetts. A KinderCare daycare in Wausau, Wisconsin is at risk of losing its license for leaving unqualified staff with children, not meeting the staffing ratio, and more than 100 rule violations. There are many other similar cases that are easily findable. Right at School has no footprint or track record in Center County. Given the public record on Right at School employees facing legal consequences for abusing the children in their care, I am surprised that SCASD is even considering their bid. These companies can produce slick promotional materials promising quality care and expert staff, but just don't have the proven track record of SEAL. I would prefer for SCASD to support our successful local program, SEAL, rather than take a chance with our children's safety and well-being by contracting out with one of these national chains. Kate also wanted me to mention that she sent her email with links with this information. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, we did receive that. If you could just share your name and where you reside in the district. Thanks.
My name is Joe Buter. I live in the borough of State College. My child also participates, previously noted, is also in the SEAL program. I first want to start off with a comment from myself. My concern is for the interaction between having staff who are salaried or eligible for benefits and the quality of the staff. When employee compensation decreases, part of a teacher's motivation can also decrease, which affects engagement with students. Additionally, hiring and retaining staff is less likely with a for-profit organization who will seek to minimize their labor costs despite the outcomes for students. Expect higher staff turnover and higher student turnover. Expect more dissatisfied caregivers. I now want to read something from Leonie and John Pecone, whose child attends Grayswood Elementary. Sorry for mispronouncing. My son Kelvin goes to Grayswood Elementary and is currently in 2nd grade. During the pandemic, we opted for in-person learning for kindergarten and the SEAL program, as we could tell that he was getting depressed without social interaction with similar-aged peers. The SEAL coordinator, Mr. Antonio, was very kind and patient with him. Over the years, Kelvin's interests have expanded from chess to now basketball. The staff loved to play with him and let him challenge himself by playing with 5th graders with guidance and safety measures in place. We are in full support of the in-house SEAL program. The staff interact with the children during school hours, not just during SEAL, so there's a great rapport between them. This value is something a third-party vendor would be missing.
Thank you. Good evening. Yeah, it bends. Pull it down.
I'm much shorter.
That problem too.
Good evening. My name is Jessica McKeon, and I live in the State College Borough and have a 1st grader at Easterly Parkway Elementary. Tonight, I will be reading 2 statements in support of keeping the SEAL program in-house from parents who are unable to attend tonight's meeting. The first statement is from Leslie Camille, and I'm very sorry if I mispronounced the name, whose children attend Park Forest Elementary. We are new to State College area, and I can't express how much SEAL has helped our son, who is in kindergarten, adapt to his new school in new town. He is a shy kid when it comes to new experiences, and SEAL has really helped bring out his true personality. He has on many occasions told us how much he loves going to SEAL, especially the full days when school is not in session. Most importantly to us is to keep SEAL as an in-house program because our son knows the faculty and staff running it. Bringing in a third party would require reacclimation for him and having the patience to allow third-party facilitators to learn about and get to know him. It doesn't make sense to try to fix what certainly is not broken. SEAL is an awesome program run by amazing people and supports our growing and developing son in countless ways. The second statement is from Jen Baca, whose children attend Radio Park Elementary. My son has had limited stability in childcare since COVID. It has seriously disrupted his learning because of the high turnover rates in staffing and student friends. He's really acclimating at Radio Park and likes the consistency between school and SEAL. He likes that the staff at the playground and the cafeteria are often also his teachers at SEAL. There are also very few male teachers and paraprofessionals in early childhood education. However, there are a few at Radio Park and he really looks up to them. I fear for staff attrition as a result of outsourcing to for-profit centers. Will they retain experienced staff like we currently do at SEAL? I am doubtful. We truly value the enrichment activities offered at SEAL and that they support local businesses and educators. In reviewing the applications for outside vendors, I believe it will no longer be possible to bring these outside businesses to SEAL, which will have a ripple effect for the local economy. My son has discovered a true passion for birds and painting as a result of SEAL activities. He has specifically asked me to find more opportunities for him to attend events run by Discovery by Nature, which ran a SEAL course last term. I don't see any such opportunities on offer in the applications for those two outside vendors. I'm not interested in paying money to an outside vendor whose main objective is profit making, not student enrichment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Dr. Joshua Kirby from Hauserville. I'm a former education professor. Now I'm a mental health counselor with a private practice downtown. My two children attend school at Spring Creek Elementary, as well as at Seal under the care of Mrs. Rachel Sullivan and her team. Our two-income household has us working jobs that make a 3 p.m. pickup impossible, and we need affordable and reliable after-school care for our kids. More importantly, though, one of our children receives extensive developmental support as a result of an individualized educational program, an IEP, that was collaboratively crafted with his school team. Our child grows and applies new skills on a seemingly daily basis. It's a beautiful thing. A critical element of their growth has been the integration of SEAL into our child's system of support. Having a certified teacher as a site supervisor, along with a consistent team of professionals, Mrs. Sullivan and her SEAL staff at Spring Creek know very well our child's strengths and areas of growth. This integration represents an additional 25% of our child's school day, with our child's IEP and its system of support in effect. The SEAL staff is particularly relevant for our child's development because the end of the day, when we are all tired, but especially our child, is a specifically targeted time in his IEP for our child to employ the self-regulation strategies that they've learned. That additional practice and reinforcement has led to a pace of progress that we are all proud of, and even a little joyously surprised by. Reviewing the two responses to the district's RFP, we are deeply concerned about the support our child with the IEP will receive from a contracted third party that has no connection to our district. We find disturbing the easily Google searchable news reports connected to each of the RFP respondents regarding the inconsistency of their staffing. The integration of the SEAL staff and its professional educators into our child's IEP delivery is an investment that those school district professionals at Spring Creek Elementary could have ignored. But instead, Mrs. Sullivan and her team leaned into it. Our child will be a success story, and this will be due in large part to the tight integration of the SEAL educators with our child's school day IEP support system. No contracted company would have the incentive to provide such care, and our child would suffer from such a decision. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Kirk French, Ferguson Township. Good evening. Listen, thanks so much for providing a platform here, for taking time to hear the thoughts and concerns of your local community on this important issue. And it's funny to use that word important because it vastly understates the gravity of this decision. After all, we're talking about the safety and education of our children. And no matter how divisive our society gets and is, that's one thing that we all agree on, that our children are everything. Everyone feels that. Everyone's on the same page about that. So when we look at this situation that's before us, we have two options. Our children can continue to be in an after-school program managed by SCASD, which utilizes local teachers, local talent, local programs, parks. Things like this strengthen theirs and our sense of community. Or we can outsource the care of our children to an out-of-state business with no local ties to our community. But I'll say this. The primary goal of a large business is profit. It's profit. The goal is to make money. On the other hand, the primary goal of SCASD is to educate and protect our children. With that said, I'm really at a loss of why this is even up for a debate. When we told our daughter, Viola, sitting right over there, she's been attending SEAL at Ferguson the last 4 years, that it might go private, and she said with an expression of deep sadness, I don't want that. I want to stay the same. I don't want to go if it's a bunch of strangers. It's heartbreaking. So listen, I think highly of the SCASD School Board. I think that over the years, the majority of your decisions have been very solid, and you have consistently put the children of this area first. I have faith that you will again make the right decision by putting our children's well-being and education above the profits of a non-local business. Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi, I'm Teresa Tarvis. I'm from Ferguson Township. Since the RFPs, the bids were put out, the thing that's been most concerning to me is at least one of them has a very public Americans with Disabilities Act case against it that was already mentioned. And I also spoke to sort of my network of national parents and asked them if they could speak to potential or anything good, positive or negative about either of the two companies that we have coming out for bid. Largely, I got a lot of feedback about high staff turnover, which from those of us who are Port Woods alumni know resulted in very high, when it was run by a third party, it resulted in a lot of turnover from staff that was very disruptive to our children. But the other thing that I got was a lot of feedback from parents whose children needed accommodations that they weren't getting. And that concerns me because my daughter has a 504, she has ADHD. I have worked with Morgan, and for the past 3 years since my daughter was in kindergarten, we've emailed about potential behavioral issues, and we've been able to have a good relationship in that way so that my daughter feels supported by all of the teachers at SEAL, who she also sees during the day in the classroom, in the hallways, at recess, at lunch. This year I was hoping to get my daughter into one of the academic enrichment classes at SEAL because she needs a little extra help to stay at grade level. But I was concerned that she on her own with her ADHD may not be able to be in that environment and keep herself focused. So I reached out to our SEAL coordinator, Morgan, and asked if there was a way that whoever was doing academic enrichment could just make sure she stayed on task, give her some gentle reminders, made sure she was set up with what she needed to do. And not only did Morgan readily agree that someone would help Jillian with that, but also they went above and beyond to make sure that they checked in with everyone that was going to be in that program and keep Jillian on track, and it's been very successful so far. I really am thankful that they were able to do that for her. The other thing that has been such a great part about the SEAL experience for the students at Ferguson Township is that there's a deaf student that is there, and my daughter tells me that they're all learning American Sign Language together, which has been such a great inclusivity thing, not only for the child who is deaf to feel like the teachers are putting in the effort to meet her where she needs to be and include all of the children. My daughter was just teaching my son how to do the signs for mother and father tonight before I came here. All the kids are very excited about it, and I just don't see a third party putting in that level of effort and putting in that extra attention to the kids, all of the kids at SEAL, that I would see a third party do. I just can't imagine that they would be willing to do that, especially based on the feedback that I've gotten from other parents in other districts.
Thank you. Good evening.
My name is Livia Beasley. I live in State College on the edge of Pine Grove Mills, and I have a first grader at Ferguson Township. I'm a children's television writer and producer. I've been doing that for 25 years. I'm also the founder of Children's Media Association, and I'm a Sunday school teacher. I moved here from New York during COVID to be close to family, and now I'm a creator and an executive producer of kids shows, mostly over Zoom. So other than teaching Sunday school, I'm not a teacher, but I've been a kids educator through media for my whole career. I've worked at Sesame Street and Blue's Clues, and I know how important creativity, intentionality, research, planning, time management, are in education. I'm married and mommy late. I'm 47. And I have a 6.5-year-old at Ferguson named Darian. And I treasure this kid, as you can imagine. He's awesome and he's smart, but he's not easy. Kiddo has a sparkly form of ADHD like me. He is funny, and he knows he is. He's creative, he's bright, he thinks a mile a minute, moves a mile a minute. He'll do anything for a laugh. He needs structure and a challenge, creatively and intellectually. He also has a tree nut allergy. This combo is a lot. His daydreaming and decision-making could mean a dangerous mistake and a trip to the ER. We visited another after-school program when he was in kindergarten that made me nervous, and I canceled. The kids were wild. The teachers were passive and being overrun, and I did not feel like he was going to be safe, let alone growing as a bright, creative little guy. Luckily, we got into SEAL like the next day, and we instantly felt reassured at the intentionality of Morgan and the leadership there, and how seriously they took his allergy, and how enriching and structured the program is. The program just perfectly fits what our kiddo needs. He flows right from school into SEAL, where they get another recess, a snack. They choose from these awesome classes like cooking and Legos and science and nature and STEM with Discovery Space, and then these fun big group activities. It's just perfectly what he needs in terms of getting all of his physical energy out and mentally being challenged. We had after-school sports for kiddo. That started too early, and Darian was disappointed that he had to leave his cooking class and miss out on the group activity. So we shifted him just like 6 weeks ago to a sport that starts a little bit later so he doesn't miss out on SEAL. Penn State provides this really fun and educational nutrition day, and Morgan went through and organized all the food items that each state, each group was bringing.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but that's your 3 minutes, and we're trying to allow everybody to speak tonight. I'd be happy to hear some more of your information if you'd like to email the board.
I will, thank you.
I'm sorry.
Like 2 seconds.
I'm sorry, it's hard to know how much more someone wants to share. Good evening.
Hi, my name is Emily Aiton Newberry, and my son Tyler is a 3rd grader at Easterly Parkway. I also have a 2.5-week-old daughter at home, which means my life is very busy. But I definitely feel that this is important for me to come here to talk to you about the one-of-a-kind SEAL program. My son Tyler has been attending SEAL since the 1st grade, and I'd like to share a bit of background on why SEAL is so important to my family. When Tyler was 5 months old, his daddy was diagnosed with cancer. And when he was 3, his daddy died. Our entire world was turned upside down. What was reliable was completely demolished. He would wonder if I would get cancer too and if I would die. Then when Tyler turned 6, pandemic happened. Same thing happened again. Our world was turned upside down, and he asked if I would die. So much worry and trauma for a 6-year-old little boy. We were living in a different district actually at the time, and I decided to pay tuition for a couple of months until I could find a house in State College School District. I wanted him to be in a district with exceptional core values and high quality programming, which includes the SEAL program, and one that also had a focus on what was important, keeping my child safe. For any child who has had lots of trauma, it's very important for the people and activities to be as consistent as possible so they know what to expect. The SEAL program is an outstanding program where my son knows what to expect. He knows the dedicated teachers, like Miss Park, who come back year after year and their expectations, and he loves the different programs and looks forward to choosing one each session. I spoke with him about the fact that SEAL might not exist, and he asked me why. In my heart, I don't want to believe it's money. I really don't. So I said to him, no matter what, we need to save SEAL. And he came up with this on his own. The classes are excellent because they have a wide variety of activities for kids to choose from, like dominoes and board games. I like the extra outside time because kids in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade don't get an extra recess during the day. The teachers are very nice. Dodgeball is very fun. In conclusion, literally that's what he said. In conclusion, SEAL is a very good program that helps kids and parents. Keeping the before and after school program in-house is just very imperative. You all are the ones that are vetting the employees. You all are making sure that the kids are safe. What's more important than keeping these kids safe? Nothing. Lots of kids have lots of trauma from lots of different areas, and you guys are ensuring now that these kids are safe. If you bring in an outside source, this is not guaranteed. They make promises they can't keep. We have data on that. We have resources on that showing that. Hiring an outside company is not a step up. It's not even unilateral. It's a step down. We are looking for high-quality programming that enriches our children's lives, and that's what the SEAL program does.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead if there's anyone else present that would like to make a public comment.
Good evening. My name is Kristen Terrell. I have a 4th grader and a kindergartner at Grays Woods SEAL. They love the program, and so my 4th grader, she started kindergarten in 2019-20. So her kindergarten year and all her friends was very disrupted by the pandemic, but she had had a good start and she had been in SEAL. And we were so impressed with all the disruption that she and her friends experienced when they were first learning remotely and SEAL was offered online via Zoom. That was the one consistent part of her day. She would be in Google Meets with her kindergarten teacher and everyone was doing their best, but she loved logging into SEAL, and I remember it would be her and maybe 1 or 2 other kids, and Antonio and other members of his team would be there logged on with her, helping her decompress, you know, from spending all day on Google Meet at 5 years old. So that really meant a lot to us. And then I would say over her time, this is her 5th year now at SEAL, and the staff there have seen her through lost teeth, new friends, good days, hard days, all of the ups and downs, and they care about her, and she sees them during the day at her school, and it's just a consistent, positive place for her to decompress. And we know as parents that she's with people who care about her and know if she had a good day, if she had a tough day, if there's something they want to share with us. So then that brings me to my kindergartner, who, of course, this is only her 1st year at SEAL, but she has wanted to go to SEAL since she was about 3. Antonio knows because she would come with me to pick up her older sister every day, and Antonio and his staff would you know, see us at the door and they would just say hello to her, or how's your day, or how's pre-K, when are you going to come to kindergarten? So that by the time she did start kindergarten this year, she was as excited to go to SEAL as she was to go to kindergarten. And that made such a huge impact on her and her comfort level with starting school, going to SEAL, seeing those friendly faces all day, knowing that at the end of the day she'd be doing something fun, she would have a place to go with people who care about her, and all of that. And both my girls love the educational sessions from, someone mentioned Discovery by Nature, Discovery Space, puppeteering, they've had soccer shots, hoop stars, all of those things they love. And my girls too, like a few others have said, are concerned about the possibility of SEAL not existing in the same way in the future. And my husband and I don't think we'd get that same value and caring from an outsourced company.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Sarah Hamrick. I live in Ferguson Township, and I have 2 children at Ferguson Elementary who love the SEAL program, and similarly to many other parents here, have expressed deep concern about the idea that SEAL might change. In addition to being a parent myself, I was a guardian ad litem in North Carolina for 3 years and saw firsthand the importance of stable, after-school care providers that children and parents felt like they could trust, that children knew the folks that were taking care of them. Our children really love SEAL, and we as parents feel like they are safe and well cared for. Morgan does a phenomenal job. She is organized, and it is so obvious to us that she deeply cares for our children. We feel like the program is high quality and our children enjoy it. They come home, often their favorite stories from the day are from SEAL. As a working professional in the community and someone who has a spouse that works full-time, I would not be able to do the job that I do that serves our community if I did not have quality after-school care program, because it is really important to me that I know and trust the providers who are caring for my children. We would like to keep the SEAL staff as folks who are knowing that they are so professional and talented, and they are also deeply invested in the community that we all live and work in, because they live and work in this community as well. I do not feel nearly as confident about a third party's ability to be invested in my children's growth and development. And as other folks have said tonight, I also don't feel or see any point in fixing a system that is not broken and in fact is quite wonderful. I feel lucky moving here and having the opportunity to be a part of the State College Area School District and have my children participate in SEAL. It also is important to maintain the continuity of care, knowing these professionals and knowing that my children really love this after-school care program. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. My name is Nicole Freeman. My kids go to Grays Woods Elementary School. They're in kindergarten and second grade. And I am here because, number one, I started to work full-time, and I was looking at after-school programs, and everyone kept telling me, SEAL is awesome, SEAL is awesome. And finally, I met Mr. Antonio and felt reassured that my children were going to be safe. My kids were in other programs, after-school other daycares when I was working full-time, and couldn't hear enough good things about SEAL. And I was thrilled that my children got into SEAL, absolutely thrilled. I knew they were going to be taken care of. We knew Mr. Antonio, and I decided to come here today because of the disturbing email that I read about these third-party vendors. As you all well know, I'm not going to go on about it, but that was my decision to come here and talk to you today, to go against these third-party vendors and to keep SEAL in-house. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have anybody else here in person? Yes.
I will keep it brief.
Sure, if you can just give us your name and where you reside in the district too, if you don't mind.
So, my name is Jason Cross. My son is at Radio Park in the SEAL program, and he absolutely loves it. He gets annoyed when I pick him up early before 5:25, and the staff there are wonderful. They will say, Henry is such a joy, and I'm thinking, is he? Because he's an absolute terror at home. He gets a positive experience from there. I feel very, very comfortable in leaving him at Radio Park. Patty McKenna is awesome. But we've been talking about, our children being in SEAL, okay, and it's a very positive experience for them. If my job was advertised and the response I got, I emailed Randy Brown and said, why are we looking at third-party vendors? The response I got was, we're just looking at the curriculum possibilities, costs and whatnot. If my job was advertised, if Penn State decided they wanted to look for another organic chemistry teacher, and I saw that job and it was my job that was being advertised, and I went to my boss and said, what's going on? We're just looking at possibilities, different changes and whatnot. I would feel really, really angry. I can only imagine what the staff at SEAL are going through. Thank you.
Thank you. Do you have any other public comment for the in-person? Okay.
Hi, Allison Rockert. I live in State College Borough. I do not have a kid in the district. He'll be starting at Easterly in the fall as a kindergartner. I've heard for years about the SEAL program, and my husband and I are full-time working parents. After school extended day program, it's essential for us. And having read the email and seeing who the two third-party vendors are, I'm absolutely shocked. It doesn't take much Googling to see some not great things, and I think that it boils down to needing something that is safe, something that's consistent in staffing, and in being there. I mean, if a third party can just be like, well, we had a contract, but sounds like you all aren't great with that anymore, so we're out of here. What good is any of this? So anyway, please find a way to keep SEAL around in the way that it is, so we can hopefully participate in the fall. Thanks.
Thank you. Okay. Anyone else?
Can I just connect the dots for you? Because I was just going to say one other thing. I'm sorry. I know I'm pushing boundaries. The tree nut thing, he has been to the ER. He has anaphylactic reactions. And they are keeping my child safe. They're keeping our children, safe, alive, thriving. They're growing intellectually and creatively. They love this program. And these are wonderful teachers. They're dedicated. They're brilliant. They're caring of our children. This is our, the next generation of actual human beings that are going on to live wonderful lives, and they need a great program, and we have a great program.
Thank you. Do we have anybody online who's looking to make a public comment? If you are joining us remotely and want to make a public comment, you just need to raise your hand. No? Okay. Okay. Okay, that's why. Okay. Julie, if you want to unmute yourself, and I think the tech staff will give you speaking privileges, and we'll listen to your public comment.
Hi, my name is Julie.
We can hear you.
I have a daughter. Can you hear me?
Yes, sorry, I was trying to say that, yeah, just so you're
No, you're good. I have a daughter at Ferguson Elementary, 3rd grade. I just wanted to touch base a little bit. The SEAL program, what it means to me and my daughter, and I'm sure all the other parents. It's such a unique blend of academic, social, and physical activities that are helping our children confidence, self-worth, and many other important life skills that they're taking on with them. I think the SEAL program allows our kids to have fun while continuing to learn. They help our kiddos stay on track with schoolwork, develop social skills, build independence, all while boosting their self-esteem. In helping our children, I think the SEAL staff has done an amazing job. I have worked previously for one of the third-party vendors for 10 years, and I know what their typical day looks like in their after-school program. I've worked in the juvenile justice system. I've seen how all this plays out. Taking away this program from our children who are so influenced by the teachers and the SEAL staff, I just think is wrong on so many levels. The staff who work for the SEAL program genuinely care for our kids. They take pride in knowing that they've helped make a difference. Our kids are our future, and the SEAL program is helping instill all the positive things that they need in life. So just please keep the SEAL program.
Thank you for your comment. Do we have anybody else online looking to make a public comment? Okay. Miriam, if you want to unmute yourself, and you have 3 minutes for your public comment.
Thank you. My name is Mary Friedman. I have 2 sons at Easterly Parkway. I think the thing that I appreciate most about SEAL is that they actually see both of my children. So one child is very, very shy, and SEAL has done a really good job at incorporating him into into activities and really making sure that he feels seen. And my second child has some behavioral issues, and it's been really key to have support between the SEAL program and his teachers at school for help, especially on his harder days. This child's formed really strong bonds with his SEAL teachers. And I'd be super worried that he wouldn't be that he would be kicked out, or he wouldn't be integrated into an after-school program with a third-party vendor. Thank you.
Thank you. At this time, I think we're going to need to conclude public comment in order to move on to some board business. I appreciate everybody's comments tonight. I understand that you're all speaking from the heart, and I appreciate your time in being part of this process. We have a little bit of a shift in our agenda tonight. We have a presenter who's got a constraint to their time, so we're going to move on to information reports, but we're going to jump down to culture, climate, and learning, and directly to the special education audit. So Ms. Merritt and Dr. Pringle and Ms. Yoder are going to join us, along with Mr. Mark Booth remotely from Global Special Education Associates, to provide an overview of the special education audit. I think we'll take a minute or two to quickly get our AV stuff set up with Ms. Yoder. I'm sorry?
Good evening. Dr. Hammersley Quick is also joining us this evening. She had just come on board, actually, when the audit was already in process. So tonight, as you know from the memo, about last July or August, we contracted with GSEA, or Global Special Education Associates, to perform a special education audit. Mr. Mark Booth oversaw the audit with his team. They did come in person in September, late August and September, and Heather and I and Michelle and some others took them around. Mr. Booth did interviews both virtually, in person, and has concluded his audit. He has joined us tonight. You'll have to bear with us. I believe, Mr. Booth, can you see the screen that I have shared?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you. Can you see my screen?
No, I cannot. No, now I can.
You can. Okay. So he will be telling me when to change the slides as he talks it, but he is going to be the one presenting tonight. And then if there are any follow-up questions, the three of us will certainly answer them for you.
Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. I'm happy to be here. I also want to say thank you to the board and to the school administration for allowing us this opportunity. I'm going to start by just talking a little bit about the process that we use, and starting with just commending Dr. Pringle on her patience, just understanding, being someone who's been a special education director for many years, understand someone else coming in and looking at your program and lifting up things and moving things around and just really giving feedback can be a stressful process. And so I just want to take a second to really applaud her on her openness and willingness in the gist of having the best program that she could possibly have. So I think that's a really important point. From there, I'm going to jump right into some of the strengths. This is a high-level overview. For the audience members and for the board members, we're sent a actual written overview that's about 35 pages, and I'm not going to cover all of that, but this is a high-level overview of the strengths and some of the areas that we are wanting to have growth in. Okay, so thinking of some of the strengths that we have, I want to start with what we see on the screen is innovation, understanding that knowing that State College is an innovative school district as a whole, the special education program has some programs that are within it that are pretty innovative. As I work with school districts across the country, as I came in and saw some of these programs, I was pretty impressed with them and thought that they were real strengths in the school district. One is the LifeLink Penn State University program. That program, which I've seen programs like it, but not the connectedness and the actual shared responsibility that I saw as we walked through that program. That's a pretty innovative and amazing program that you guys have there. The Delta Middle and High School program, even though it's not necessarily like specifically a special education program, it does offer a different opportunity for students with disabilities, and one that is a little smaller and a little more connected to the staff that I was very, very impressive. And then finally, I wanted to bring up the HEARTS program. The HEARTS program, which is a therapeutic program for students with mental health and behavioral concerns. The intensity there and the amount of staff that are committed to that inside and outside of the district, and the partnerships that are created there are very, very innovative. Another innovative program that is really making a difference in the school district. You can go on, please. Okay, so next, even I heard one of your parents talk about some of the behavioral interventions as some of the public comment. Really, one of the things that I did want to share is the behavioral interventions and the program, the amount of work that's been put into the behavioral programs at state colleges, very, very impressive. The positive PBIS, which is positive behavior intervention supports, the trauma-informed practices, the youth mental health, the amount of counselors that you guys have there, the second step curriculum. I could go on and on and on about things that are part of the behavioral intervention program. And this has really made this a strength for the special education department there in State College. Next, I want to talk about the staff commitment, starting again with Dr. Pringle and her office and their commitment to the special education program. They've done a great job of providing a full continuum of services. And what I mean by that is from services that are provided within the general education classroom to kids that need separate or special programming like the HEARTS program that I talked about. So that full continuum of services is there, and it helps to provide services for a wide range of kids. The environments that they've created and the staff members there have resources. There's not a situation where people are looking for resources. Seems as we came through that staff members have what they need for the most part. There are some things that people wanted. One of the questions that we asked was, what would be on your wish list? And it was really interesting because there wasn't a lot. A lot of times you think people are going to ask for major things. There weren't major things that people were asking for, and that's because the amount of resources that have been provided to the staff. Also with that, talking about the commitment from the staff as we were doing interviews and with staff members, but also with the administration and specifically the central office administration, we could see the cross collaboration between Dr. Yoder's team, between Dr. Pringle's team, and even with Dr. Klingeman's team, we could see the cross collaboration and how they work really, really well together and how they are truly, truly committed to the success of the students there in the district. Secondly, clearly there is a commitment from your teachers, administrators, therapists, paraprofessionals, everyone involved. I mean, and some of your staff members, as you know, are also parents, and it was really great to see the energy they had towards the program. And it's just really, again, I give a lot of that credit back to your special ed leadership and Dr. Pringle, and just how hard she works and how hard she works to solve issues for people. I think it really helps other people to want to be committed as she is. Also, I want to talk about your district administration. Me and my team members, we spent lots of time with your administrators as we came in. We sat down, we interviewed, we spent time with them face to face. And these were some really great conversations. And we, not only about special education, which is obviously why we were there, but really about the district, the alignment of the mission, and just and it's very easy to see that you have phenomenal leaders inside of your school district. And their commitment to the district, their commitment to each and every student, commitment even to school safety. We had a lot of school safety conversations as we were there too. And so really, really just impressed with the level of leadership that your administrative team provides. We talk about the mission alignment of those leaders too. And some of the other work that's been done and put in place by the district's administration is the alignment of the mission for the district. It's pretty easy to see where you're headed as a district. I was able to see as we walked through the renovation and some of the addition of spaces inside of the schools for student learning, which is very, very impressive. the technology available to students. And also, I want to bring up the implementation of the MTSS framework that is there. And there's already starting to get results. I know this is how I first connected with Dr. Yoder, was talking about MTSS. And really, as we got to go in and talk to some of the MTSS teams, but also as I've been able to look at some of the data, which I'll talk to you about here in a second, we can see that the MTSS process is already having a small impact. And then finally, as we were doing interviews and spending time with staff, there were teachers who wanted to walk out of their room and come talk to us because it's not, a lot of times when we go to school districts, people are wanting to hide or they're not really wanting to talk. Your staff was friendly. They absolutely wanted to talk. They wanted to give input, and they knew that we were doing a program audit. And it was very good to see that. And it led to really high-level discussions, even if they were in the hallway outside of their rooms. Everyone was really open to us being in their classroom, took time to talk to us and show us things in their classroom. And that really helped in giving us a really good picture of what was going on in the district. And so obviously, anytime you do a program review, there's going to be some areas that are recommended areas for growth. And so I'm going to go through some of those and just walk through some of the, again, this is a high level response. Okay, so starting with the need for, one of the recommendations we're making is that there be a special education leadership team for the district. And this should include and it says K-12, but preschool through 12th grade staff members. This would represent every school, it would represent every special education program, and it would be a combination of people that are in a sense a part of the leadership team. What this team would do would be to set short-term and long-term goals aligned with the district's mission, and one of their goals would be to increase academic achievement for future program development. When you put together a leadership team like this, one of the big goals here is to increase communication. I'll talk about that in just a second, which came through in some of our interviews, but also as we came around and talked to staff, it's probably the strongest indicator was the need for improved communication. So what this special education leadership team would do, they would, of course, like I said, improve communication. They would be not making specific decisions on staffing, but they would be able to step back, look at the entire picture of the district, and then be able to make recommendations as to where the district is going when it comes to staffing, when it comes to what does the data say, how are our students doing, how are they performing in the classroom, how does our state assessment data going. They'd also be able to have that input on what types of professional development are needed so that we can not only have a framework, but an alignment of information that's going from the schools, from the staff, from our students, through to this leadership team, and then back from the leadership team back to the school. So you always have that communication going, and everyone in the district can say, I know what's going on because information is being passed back and forth. So, and I just talked about that one. So there was two kinds of communication that we really talked about as we were doing the interviews. As we did the interviews, I will tell you that, like when we put some numbers to this, we interviewed paraprofessionals, and about 50% of them had said that communication was well. When we did teachers and therapists, it was about 27%, and as we talked to administrators, it was about 37%. Who were said that communication was done well in the district. And so we want to improve those numbers. And so as we talk about responsive communication, one of the things that has happened, and I know I'm glad that Ms. Hammersler-Quick is there, Dr. Hammersler-Quick is there, because at the point when I came in, we did our walkthroughs. She hadn't actually started. I think she was starting the next week, if I'm correct. And so one of the things that had been happening before that was Dr. Pringle was really the person running around trying to answer everyone's questions and really working really hard to be as responsive as she possibly could, but it's just not physically possible. So I do think having Dr. Hammersler-Quick there will make a huge difference in that responsive communication, but this special education leadership team will give us the opportunity to have a framework in place that's not dependent on individual people. being in place. It'll allow this team to come together, make decisions, and allow for some consistency, because if you keep the same people on the team as you move forward, you'll be able to have that consistency, and it won't be dependent on one person being there and not being there as far as administration or any other staff person. Next, let's talk about proactive communication, and this will allow, this is just the basics that we would do in communication, of having newsletters, monthly emails, announcements that are coming out on a regular cadence, that everyone would be able to know this is when this is coming out. This is when I'm getting information. It would also give information from the special education leadership team that can go out to the individual school special education teams and be able to share information with them and get feedback in a organized manner that, again, that has a cadence to it. I'm going to stop right there for just a quick second, just to see if there's any questions that I can answer on what we've covered so far, and then I'm going to get into instruction and data.
Any questions from board members at this moment? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. All right, so as we get into data, one of the things that there's two types of data we look for when we do a program review. One would be what we call compliance data, and that is information that you get from the state and from the federal government to say, are you in compliance with compliance indicators that are, federal and state indicators that are out there. And so that would be one kind of data. The next other kind of data that we want is annual performance data. And that is on, when I say performance data, I'm talking about subgroup data for specific special education subgroup. And so one of the things that, as part of this process, as I requested that data, the compliance data was absolutely there. They had it, they knew the information, and we were able to aggregate that data and give some feedback there. When it came to the performance data specifically for a special education subgroup, that data was not necessarily readily available in a format that would be usable to set goals and those kinds of things. So it is one of those areas that probably needs improvement, and as one of the things that, in talking to Dr. Pringle and some of our concerns, this may be an area that's not specific to special education, but a need in the district, rather that be, I've seen districts your size who would have a data person who could provide leaders, rather it be Dr. Pringle who's doing curriculum, or for Dr. Pringle or for other departments that would be able to provide the data that they need to be able to make decisions and to set goals. And so that annual performance data, even though there's lots of data there that's local data, sometimes your individual schools do not have enough students who are testing in subgroups to really give you the data that you get from the state. And so we just really need to be able to pull that data, have it in a format that's usable, so that that special education leadership team can actually set goals for themselves to say, okay, we're at 45% of our special education students that are passing our state assessment, and we want to set a goal to make that 55%. And that would allow us to do that where we have really good data that is organized in a manner that will allow us to do something with it. It also, having that data does a lot of things. It allows you, like I said, to plan for the growth of your subgroup. It's setting goals. It also allows you to have a culture of teamwork, of transparency, so everyone in the district knows this is where we're at and this is where we need to go. Any organization, any department is going to need that in order to move things forward. And so we really want to push toward what I call extreme ownership, and you can't get there to have that extreme ownership unless you have that kind of data that's going to allow us to set goals, to be able to say, yes, we're moving in the right direction, and to make other decisions that come off of that. I always say that it also allows us to celebrate our wins when we have that sort of data, to be able to say, yeah, we're actually doing a great job in moving forward, which I think would be helpful not only to the administrative team, but to the staff in general. The next thing is just an instructional framework. And when I say instructional framework, I should probably pin that back to more of the interventions that we're doing for our students with disabilities. I will say that clearly with the inclusion model that you guys use there in the district for most of your students, it's pretty clear that that's happening for students. The MTSS process has given us more data than we've ever needed. What I have seen in high-performing districts is that there is a specific plan specifically for the special education subgroup that says this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing, and that's both for literacy and for math, so that everyone's on the same page and it's very clear and direct as to what specific intervention we're using, how we're using it, and then that professional development can follow to track that, not only with data, the data that we're getting from the interventions that we're using, but from the actual face-to-face work that we're doing with students allow us to make adjustments as we go. I will say that as I was doing the interviews, and every time we did interviews or we did walkthroughs, we came back and we had conversation with Dr. Pringle, and she's able to give us more information than maybe we might have got during the interviews or things that we saw during the walkthroughs. And she was very helpful in helping us to see where we need to go there. But I would say just having a well-written, specific instructional framework that we're using specifically for our subgroups in special education would be one that would be one of the challenges of that special education leadership team. And also along with that, anytime you're working in special education, one of the things that you want to have is, what are we working with our students on as far as executive functioning? And I want to be clear that as we talk about instructional framework, we talk about this executive functioning, these are things that they are there, and there are things, great things that are happening in your school district for these areas. These are just areas that can be improved and we could probably be a little more intentional about what we're doing. And so one of the things that that we're recommending is that we really dig into executive functioning skills and really push toward independence for students. When you look at the Penn State LifeLink Penn State program, that has very specific measurements who get kids to that independence, and that needs to go throughout the entire special education program. One of the other areas that we saw as we were going through that could be improved, as we were walking through classrooms, I'm going to loosely use the word co-teaching because normally I'm the person protecting that terminology, saying that it must be two certified teachers. But this is probably more about, as people, you see the paraprofessionals and the teachers, and sometimes two teachers in a room, just really making sure that we have good training and a good framework for co-teaching strategies that can be used in the classroom that will help us while we already have inclusive learning opportunities. Whenever you have an inclusive program, it's vital that you have co-teaching training and co-teaching strategies in place so that we get the best out of both individuals that are in the classroom. And I think that would be a recommendation that we would have, because not in all areas did we see great co-teaching. There were some areas that we saw some excellent co-teaching, but there were also some areas that you could see the need for improvement. Professional learning opportunities. So another thing that will come out of that special education leadership team is the alignment for professional learning opportunities. What you want to be able to do is look at your data, set goals, set a budget, and be very specific about what the needs are in the district. When you pull all those things together, you can have a professional development learning plan that's specific to the special education department. But I am going to be, as we were doing interviews, one of the things that came up was that really needing to make sure that we have the opportunity to provide some of that professional learning opportunities to our general education teachers and also to our administrators. Both of those groups, and I should also say our paraprofessionals, both of those groups and our paraprofessionals really requested to have more professional learning or professional development. I will say to you that there has been lots of professional development provided, especially in the specific area of behavior and mental health. And so it's not like it's not been provided, but really wanting to make sure that we, as a special education leadership team, are able to gather representatives from each one of the areas and say, what is the learning that you need? And I will say, as I had meetings with your administrators, one of the things that did come up was some of them fit very, very comfortable. I think we had at least one or two who were special education teachers before, and they were very comfortable with what's going on in special education, but you had others who said, yeah, I really wish I could grow in this area. And so hoping that we can put some things in place to help those individual administrators grow in the area of special education. And some of the, in this slide here, the administrator slide, you can go to the next. Really just talked about some of those areas, navigating legal matters, special education law, the roles of their role in MTSS and evaluation. So I won't go over all those, but those were some of the areas that came through as we talked to administrators about some of the professional learning that they needed. And then on the next slide, you'll see some of the areas that were identified as we talked to teachers and paraprofessionals, co-teaching, some of the things I've already mentioned, executive functioning, differentiation, universal design for learning, accommodations, modifications, goal writing, and so forth. And so you can see there's a long list there of areas that people felt like they needed more professional learning in. One of the other things as we were going around and looking at the learning spaces, even in some of the schools where some of the renovations had started, was that we felt like clearly you have beautiful learning spaces there at State College. And so that was, in general, that was not a problem. But there were some spaces where, and I think some of these things are already in the plan for moving forward. There were some spaces where for like a therapist, it wasn't the best setup for them. And I think as I talk to some people, some of this may be in some of the plans that you guys have moving forward, but just really want to make sure that we're intentional about having appropriate spaces for their, what we call related services, whether that be your occupational therapy, physical therapy. Those areas really have distinct needs. I'll give you an example. As a speech therapist, I need absolute quiet to be able to hear the sounds that a student's making. So I need to be in a space. I'm not saying that it needs to be soundproof, but it needs to be a space where it can be quiet and that I can actually have that back and forth with the student to be able to hear what I need to hear to provide the therapy that I need to provide. Another example of that would be for a physical therapist who's going to need the space for kids to move around, go up and down stairs, those kinds of things. And they're getting the job done. I do want to say that, without having the specific spaces that they need, they are working to get the job done. Throughout the building, I've seen kids walking up the stairs that are in the hallway, but to be able to really practice in a therapeutic environment, there are some needs there that are still, hopefully, that are part of the plans as you guys continue to renovate spaces. And then finally, I just want to talk real quick about special education, how it's moved, and kind of where you guys are, at least from my perspective. Back in the 70s, those of you who've been around for a while have heard of mainstreaming, and that's when our students were, in a self-contained classroom, and they were not really spending time in general education classrooms. And when they did spend time in general education classrooms, we used to say things, well, they're just here for social reasons. And so that was back then. Then in the 90s, there became a movement toward what we call inclusion. And you guys are clearly in an inclusion model. And you also have some programs that would be what I consider to be unified programs, but really continuing to use that special education and the leadership to keep pushing the innovative, keep pushing toward innovative practices and to get us to what we're heading toward, which is got unified programs. And so really wanting to provide those opportunities for students and for staff members to not only be comfortable, but get the training to move us in that direction. And we talk about unified programming, it's really the understanding, not only should students be inside of the general ed environment, but it's really the understanding with your programs that it is a benefit to our general education students to have kids with disabilities in their classroom. There are major benefits that can happen there. And as we move in that direction, I think that's the innovative push that we want to make. And again, all of these things that I'm saying come back through the special education leadership team that will help push programs through the district. And then finally, I do want to say that thank you. There were a couple of things that I would say that, again, I would put toward this leadership team. I do think we need to move forward. This was not part of this process, but to do parent surveys and to even think about what a committee would be like to to work with parents on a regular basis to make sure that that voice is heard. Again, that wasn't part of this program review, but I do think as a practice that needs to be something that's done on a regular cadence. I know most states do have some process from hearing from parents, but of course, as a local school district, we want to make sure that we have a very specific process for the special education department to hear from parents and to get that feedback that will help in developing programs as we move forward. And again, I just want to thank the school board, thank the administration, thank all your staff, your paraprofessionals, your therapists, everyone for just your openness. Again, it's not always easy to have someone from the outside come in and observe what you're doing, but I think that the willingness and the hopefulness of your staff to have great programs as you move forward, they were absolutely just amazing to work with.
Thank you. Perhaps Heather and you all could just really briefly summarize what spurred off launching this audit. Just, we have several new board members, and it might be a good way to recap about like why we decided to initiate the audit. Yeah.
Is he going to be online, or is he? Because I would like to ask a question. If he is still here, I think he is getting ready.
Oh, well then, yeah, go. Yeah, go.
Thank you so much. I am a new board member, so I'm trying to kind of understand what's. Hi, I am a new board member, so I need to press my microphone and try and get my head around what the audit is and what it entails. And I think you addressed it towards the end in terms of parent surveys. You emphasized proactive and responsive communication, and I wasn't sure initially if that was just based on cadence or frequency or included parents in the audits. And so I think based on what you've just said is that parent surveys are a relevant measure to include in audits? That's a yes or no question?
I would say that it really is a local decision. I usually am going, I think if you're really just wanting to get programming, you know what I mean? And this was more of a, how does our programming look? You know what I mean? This sort of an audit. So I understood why we weren't doing parents. When you want to get it, that kind of, I don't want to call it outside because they're part of the family of, State College. But when depends on what you're looking at and what the results you're looking for. And I think this was more of an internal audit to really just look at programming and what we can do to improve programming within the special education department.
Thank you. That's
I'm sure Dr. Yoder can answer to that, but that's how I saw it.
Thank you. That's a really helpful clarification. So then what are the measures of responsive communication to the general population? Would that just be mostly cadence and frequency, and that's the measure of a kind of effectiveness in terms of responsive and proactive communication?
I think it's just having a framework. I think it all starts with what's your framework. Having a framework for regular conversation, the same as you would as having a school board, not necessarily monthly meetings, but maybe even twice a year, or some feedback where parents are able to have that voice, and whether that be through a survey, whether that be through having a parent leadership committee, whatever that might look like. So I think there's not one framework for doing it, but I think it's important to be able to have that voice. I will tell you that as we were doing our interviews, we interviewed almost 100 staff members. There were several that were also parents as we were doing the interview, and they let us know that too.
Thank you. That's super helpful to a new board member who's trying to understand what's entailed by the audit process. So I really appreciate your help.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't want to leapfrog over important questions. So if there's other important questions for this presenter, I'm happy to entertain those. No, yes. Go ahead, Heather.
Hi, everybody. I'll start just by going back a few years. In April of 2020, the district was notified of significant disproportionality in the area of discipline of Black students who receive special education. So that really kind of started us down the path of really self-auditing initially. And so we worked through all of the data that we had that year, and then the following year we were identified again for a second year. But in addition, we were identified as over identifying students with a specific learning disability, Black students with a specific learning disability. So it really kind of made us pause and try to determine how we can look deeper at our practices to address those disproportionalities. That started some of the conversations earlier, I guess it was last summer. And in addition to that, we really wanted to look close at staffing and how that could best lend itself to addressing those concerns that we had been seeing over time. I don't know if you want to add any more.
Absolutely. And as you know from our PSSA Future Ready report, we are still showing disproportionality with our identification with our Hispanic and Black students. So we have, since doing the audit and listening to Mark and his team when they came out, we've already added some things. He certainly gives us and provides us with suggestions that we'll be working with CJ and Jonathan to determine what are our next best steps. But really changing the model. We are including kids in the classrooms, but that has been a shift even this year with more inclusive, more time with the general ed and trying to figure out with that MTSS system, what is the key intervention, how much little time should they be out of the classroom, and what is the programming that is evidence-based that's really going to meet their needs and grow them. So we were looking at that too in their comprehensive supports when we began to talk about that. And again, do we have enough staff? Where should they be? What should they be doing to help us to just better over support all of our students with that equity lens as the eye.
So that's more detailed information that's been shared with you out of the audit, because that's not stuff we've talked about this evening. So it would be just helpful to know what all you gleaned additionally. I mean,
From his audit,
Yeah.
Like I said, we are involved in elementary. We have been working actually for 3 years on a comprehensive K-12 MTSS system that focuses on the whole child. So that is where we're looking at all children, including special ed, which would be considered advanced tier. But really what that is to try to keep students from qualifying from special ed, making sure we have the proper programming in place in the tier 1 or in the regular general ed classroom, and then if not, what extra do they need through that system. So we have systems in place K-12, which 3 years ago was not something, but again, taking a look, are we adding those in the right way? Our comprehensive supports with literacy, we've partnered in elementary with Patton to really look at that, and again, in an inclusionary model of what is the dosage, what is the scheduling. So as Mr. Booth and his team have come in and talked, it was interesting to me, and I'm not sure if they caught on it, but when we were working on our Future Ready plans, and if you were part of those stakeholder groups in October, for new board members, you may not have been, communication came up there as a weakness too. So as he's sharing that and we're talking about those pieces, it is something that we know overall in our district, communication continues to fizzle to the top. So we've been talking about how do we better communicate and really bring those special education teachers in and provide them with the background and understanding to support some of the changes that he is suggesting and that we have been trying to tackle really since the fall.
I also think it's good practice to programmatically examine your programs. If we learned anything from the equity audit, we learned that we need a plan, and without a plan, you can't have goals and you can't have successes, and you can't communicate. So this is some of the things that we're hoping to come out of this audit, is that we can put together a plan to address some of the concerns and hopefully make a better program than what we had before, fix some of the weaknesses.
And so I assume we'll be getting follow-ups. Once you put some of these plans in action, you could come back and let us know how it's going?
Absolutely, and that's, like I said, they task, and we want to bring more of other directors. Again, Mrs. Merritt's now K-12 to look at those systems, and every piece needs to come together. We have data that we talked about from the PSSA that we now have compiled, but we haven't had an opportunity to look at those trends. That's the identification. Where are our special education students being identified? Are they coming to us identified? Starting to look at that. So that's data we've gathered that we'll be looking at. And again, when we were working with Mr. Booth this summer and in the fall, and he began to really talk with us about the schedule and the model of supporting and the co-teaching. That is something we're talking about. We haven't been trained on that. So we do have special ed teachers in some cases in the classrooms, but is it a true co-teach? So as we set goals forth and if we develop a team, absolutely, we'll come back to you. I believe we were just talking tonight that there is a special education report coming out in April. So in 2 months, we'll be able to come back with you actually with some things that they've done from their goals from this year, but also take into account some of the pieces that Mr. Booth pointed out in the audit.
Thank you.
Thanks. Peter.
Yeah, thank you so much. And Mr. Booth, thank you very much for your work with our district. Really appreciate it. So this is it's a district-wide set of recommendations. I'm just wondering, because of the issues of disproportionality, what the coordination is with the DEI initiative and DEI office. Can you say anything about that?
I can, because I just spoke to Mr. Johnson today in our check-in. It is, so Mrs. Black is K-12. When we've been working elementary-wise with these comprehensive literacy plans, and you're going to hear me say, every single time it starts in elementary with literacy. We've got to put the supports in place, but we need to get them where they need to be. It's hard to get her to the table at times because of that K-12, so we have been talking about what can we do to really look at that with an equity lens and make some shifts. Dr. Pringle can talk a little bit more. Jean Knaus, Director of Student Support, Tanya and Heather actually combined goals this year for their priority goals. So when we presented in September, but if you want to talk any more about some of your combined goals, that's another way is they're working together.
Yeah, so as she said, Jean Knaus and Tanya and myself have been working with the admin team at the monthly meetings to do culturally responsive school leadership. We did do it last year, but we extended the focus this year to a more responsive approach to discipline, using case studies, looking at our handbook, kind of surveyed our entire A team on the first day and came back to revisit that data later. And I think we have next Wednesday is our next session. So that's a focus that we're going to, I think, continue each year because we all need to grow in that area. And it's been a great collaboration with the admin team. We're learning from one another. You know, the elementary is learning from secondary because they have completely different scenarios and a different lens on how things occur, how things are handled. And then with our special events coming in, it's kind of, it's a great collaborative effort.
Can I add something there?
Sure. Go ahead.
I do want to say, and it's inside of my report when we talk about DEI, and I know, I think Dr. Pringle talked about significant disproportionality in there. The MTSS program, I'm making a jump here because I'm not as involved in the MTSS process, but I did see a jump in your numbers, I should say in a positive manner, a jump in your numbers for African-American males when it comes to disproportionality. And so I think that's an important point for the DEI group because I agree with Dr. Yoder that literacy is a key way here in working toward improved DEI relationships amongst your staff, and the behavioral things that Dr. Pringle was putting in place are right on track to help in that same way. So I wanted to point that out because I can't really definitely say it is, but to see the jump normally that happens through an MTSS process, the data is already starting to show some improvements there with significant disproportionality for African-American students.
Yeah, and I would say the key is dialing into the data and knowing where those kids are in our school district. The N number is so small in some school districts that they get missed. So I would say digging into that data, our subgroups, especially if they're identified as special needs and so forth, and providing them with the supports and resources necessary in order to get them to achieve.
thanks. Other questions? Okay, thanks very much. Thanks for flip-flopping things. I appreciate the finance team's patience so that we could do that. So we'll revert to the, I'm sorry?
He's still there.
Oh, yes. Did you have any, thank you, Mr. Booth. Is there anything else you wanted to add?
Oh, no, just absolutely thank you guys for the opportunity and appreciate, and I'll be in touch.
Thank you so
guys.
much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Carly. Sorry. Too many screens to keep my eye on. So we can go, we're going to loop back to the beginning of information reports, and we'll start with Finance Committee. So Mr. Brown, Mr. Vigileone are going to provide an overview of the 2024-25 budget development process.
Thank you. Actually, Megan, why don't you go ahead and get started tonight? We have our first detailed budget report, which we're always very excited to start with Megan. The only other better thing that Megan could do is bring some of her yummy food. So Megan will talk about last year and last fiscal year, 2022-23, and then she will give an update from her report about the current year and then the budget year.
Thank you. So I know these meetings can go quite long, and I don't want to spend time rehashing things that were in the report and you had a chance to read. So I'll just, for people who didn't have a chance to see the report very quickly, let you know financially the program is doing very well. Right now we are really happily the recipient of a lot of extra funding from the state and federal governments, and that's been very helpful to running a program. School lunch programs run on very, very tiny margins. We make a penny or two on a meal, hopefully. So the trick is to have as much participation as we can have so that we can keep our program afloat. So having the federal and state government chipping in to help fund the program has given us, again, extra funds, good funds to make sure our program is serving very, very high quality food. We have the staffing that we need to do it well, and it just kind of builds on itself. So we've been doing well. We've got great participation from students in the school cafeterias. I'm very proud of the food that we're serving. I think, again, we're still on very tight margins, so you know, what you can do with a $3 meal, it's not steak and lobster, but it is still very high quality, good healthy meals and good food. And again, families and students are participating in the program. I think they're generally happy with the program. So all of that is leading to good financial endings for the program. Had a good solid profit last year. We're going to certainly end this year also in the black. Next year, just not really knowing what's going to happen with the state and federal funding. I did a very conservative budget. I think we are going to see, you know, that post-pandemic funding go away. So I thought it was safer to not plan on any of that. Though I do think the state will continue to support free breakfasts, at least in the state. So included that in the budget. So financially, again, I think we're in a good shape right now. We have a nice solid fund balance. So even if we do lose money next year, we're going to be in good shape. It seems a little funny to come here and talk about the school lunch program, talk about money, because that's not, you know, I do certainly have to keep an eye on the budget, make sure we're in good shape. But our goal is to make sure students are well fed, well nourished. They show up in the classroom ready to learn. And I think we're doing that very well. I'm very proud of my staff and the good job that they do in doing those things, and was happy to be able to share a couple of the things, initiatives that we've been doing in the school lunch program. So if you have any questions, I would be happy to answer those.
Thank you, Megan. As always, your report's really thorough and very appreciated. It's clear what a strong team you lead, and that they feel the same about you, I think, as you feel about them.
Hope so.
Any questions from board members? Like I said, so thorough, it's a little tough to.
All right, well, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Thanks, Megan.
Thanks, Megan.
All right.
We're up and running for a budget update. Just to give a brief background, this is going to be less on the numbers and more about the process and going through. We have some new board members. We have a new assistant business administrator, and we're just trying to go through and set the groundwork together so we're on the same page.
New New
So-
presentation style.
So the budget is 3 different steps. It's pretty much the line item detail, then the function and account details, and the budget and projection summaries. And we are right now in the line item detail, pulling that information together. So for the line item detail, that's really the starting point. It's a significant involvement of accounting and departmental staff time, very labor intensive, and sets the foundation for the overall budget. The function and account detail has a significant involvement of accounting and cabinet staff and attempts to align available resources with the desired outcomes in the efforts. And this is a building block for the overall budget, which really is shown in the budget projections and summary. This is larger portions of time for cabinet and the board. It assigns resources to fit in with the overall strategy of the board in the district and finalizes a complete and responsible budget for the district and community it serves. So as we're doing the building blocks, as you can see right now, the 40-plus budget heads are completing their line item budgets and submitting those up to the accounting department staff right now. We are also working on personnel budgeting. From there, the accounting staff will review the information submitted, assess its accuracy, and reconcile the information with the budget heads. That way, everybody's on the same page as it gets submitted up into the cabinet, into the board, in which they will review and finalize the budget. And as you can see, the timeline moves up accordingly from where we are now and or January through June. So what are the key documents that you will be looking at? Personnel budgeting module in finance, that is a key internal document and resource that we use, along with the detailed budgets for the budget heads. Position control and the staffing reports, so that we have a good idea. About 70% of the district's budget is related to personnel cost. So really having a good grasp on the position, the personnel cost is very important. The e-finance system is where a lot of this information comes together, and then it gets sort of pulled together in a more summary format on the projection master spreadsheet, which we've already shared some copies of those with you this year. The board documents, the projection master spreadsheet, like we said, we shared with you. The board presentations over the course of the budget development. This is not a short process, and hopefully it'll be building on itself so that we all are on the same page as we go through the various steps. And then the budget matrix spreadsheet, which is shared each year with that, and I will show you an example of that at the end of the slide for the new board members. So the goals of each board document. The projection master is a longer-term view of the impact of the budget on the district's long-term financial viability and shows the cause and effect relationships of decisions. So you can see where investments go and the prioritization, because what happens, efforts and expenses sort of meet resources and revenues. The board presentations, it keeps the board and public informed and allows them to offer their thoughts in the process and during the process to inform the budget. And then the budget matrix is an organized view of the budget from the function and account perspective to organize that effort, again, into an easily digestible format. And the copy of the budget matrix spreadsheet, it's a little bit small on here, and I apologize, but this is really the final matrix that was utilized in last year's budget. So this is a historical document to reference. And with that, we'll be happy to answer any questions.
Just a quick question, just looking, since I'm new, looking at the process that you have, the line item detail to function and account detail, if there are new requests for things like, I don't know, say like a request for replacement of instruments or something like that, how would that get worked into the budget? Is that a line item thing? Do they come to you later in the process?
Correct. It is a line item thing. It can really happen in various different ways.
Okay.
But what is really happening right now are the budget heads and the staff underneath the budget heads. They are informing the line item detail, which will then flow up through the accounting department, be on the same page, so that theoretically they will be informing with their supervisors and have them on the same page of what the requests and new requests are that are coming through and up the line.
Okay, and then and that's pretty flexible. Like after you get through the line item part of that, if something gets added to it, you just work with them kind of back and forth on that, or?
Well, from a departmental lens, this is the time when folks make their
Okay.
new requests. But obviously, our process is very fluid, so if something comes up later in the process, then it can go into the approval phase and get added later, yes.
Okay, thanks.
So Megan, in her report, talked about 2 steamers and a dishwasher. That's her planning, kind of looking at the facilities. And then if a dishwasher breaks later, we find some other.
Well, that's why we have fund balance.
Gotcha. Okay.
First of all, and second of all, Megan's budget, Megan's food service program is intended to be self-supporting. Okay, but that does not mean that in the past, the general fund has had to help support and help with that broken dishwasher mid-year that was not budgeted.
But she planned for it, so we're all good.
There you go.
Yeah, Gretchen.
So I just had a question about who are the budget heads? Like, I know a principal makes their own budget, right? But who, I mean, that's interesting, there's more than 40. Who are they?
But
Not by name, but I mean by position. And not all 40, just some examples, so, you know.
It'd be all your administrators, and then there are other people like the fitness center manager, the pool operator manager has some input in working with a high school principal, and then, but the majority of them are administrators, whether they're a principal or a director.
Thanks.
Sure.
Yeah, I wondered a little too. Other questions before we move on? Okay.
So next, we'll invite Mr. Tom Beckett to join us at the table. He's our financial advisor for the district. And as we begin to engage in our district-wide facility master plan, as well as our Mount Nittany Elementary project, Joe and I have been talking with Tom about our processes and what we have ahead of us for capital planning. And so we thought that it would be a good time to bring Tom to a board meeting tonight, letting you get to know him before we get into potentially a bond offering or a bank loan to help with a project.
Thank you. It is nice to be back many years later. All kinds of things happening in the interim, new faces, old faces. It's really wonderful to see you all. Just by way of review and introduction, my name is Tom Beckett. I work for a firm called NW Financial Group. I am a proud Nittany Lion. I live down near Philadelphia. My firm is based in New Jersey, but I am their Pennsylvania guy, which means I go everywhere from Pittsburgh to Philadelphia to Scranton to Erie. I've had the pleasure of working with Randy and Donna and now Joe for Randy and I figured out it's almost 10 years now, and that really is wonderful for me. It's nice to have people that have faith in what we do, and we have good experiences, and we really enjoy working with you. I think it's been successful to date, and some of the things that we were thinking about over the last 10 years were about making space for your future capital projects and making certain that the decisions that we made in 2014, 15, 16, and 17 didn't overly tie your hands when it came to the next set of important projects for the district. We'll go through some of that tonight, but I'll first start out by kind of going through basics and going through what it is that a municipal advisor like myself does. We are by definition, a fiduciary of yours. We don't buy or sell securities. We don't make any money by buying low and selling high. We just are paid by you to give unvarnished and impartial advice to you when you enter into any type of lending or borrowing transaction. I won't go into the history here. Randy can tell you all about it. But sometimes well-meaning folks who are in your positions have been led astray, so to speak. And hopefully my job is to make sure that doesn't happen in the future. Like I said, since we've been working together since 2014, we've probably done about $240 million of financing. Some of that's what we call new money, which is borrowings that build things, and some of that is refunding, which is refinancing those outstanding bond issues that you may have from time to time to save you money, similar to refinancing your home mortgage. We work in terms of our skill set. We do capital planning, which is what we're about ready to embark on. We work with your staff to position the districts relative to any other financial intermediaries, be they rating agencies, third-party bond insurers, or the capital markets generally. So we are annually talking to our clients, to the rating agencies on behalf of our clients. So we're interested in what your budget is 2 years after we do a financing, because we want to make sure that the quality of your credit stays the same, and that's a communications job as much as it is a budgeting job that you're going to be embarking on every year. And we evaluate when you actually enter into a transaction that the transaction's fairly priced, that you have the right team in place to effectuate that transaction, and then we follow it up by working with your staff on doing this requisite filing of plan-con forms that are, one of these days, hopefully we'll get some reimbursement back from the state. Open question there. So one of the things that Randy and Joe asked me to talk about is just general thoughts about debt and debt capacity for a local government, but particularly for a school district. There are limitations on the amount of money that you can borrow. And they're primarily 4 places. One's the statutory limitation. You can borrow 250% of your average 3 years of revenue, which is $440 million. You're nowhere near that, and you're likely not to get anywhere near that, nor is any other school district in this, well, with a couple exceptions, likely to get anywhere near their statutory borrowing limit. Pennsylvania has very high statutory borrowing limits. The more real limit is the financial capacity that's set by Act 1. So your index is only going to go up a certain amount every year, and that's going to drive not only how much you can afford to pay for debt service on your borrowings, but obviously your budget. So your debt service that you'll pay on buildings will compete with other priorities in your budget, and that's going to be driven by your Act 1 index and your growth in your assessed value. And in state college area school districts' particular case, the fact that you elected to levy taxes on yourself for a big chunk of your last set of projects through the referendum. It's still only one of 2 school districts in the state of Pennsylvania who've ever done that. So, successfully. My alma mater, by the way, failed. They should have hired me, maybe, instead of the other guys. So the other constraint on the amount of money that you may want to borrow is your credit rating. So the more leverage a borrower gets, the more risky their credit rating can get. Your credit rating is nowhere near being at risk by almost anything that you're going to do. You have the second highest possible credit rating. You're at a AA1, and that's just below a AAA. AAAs are very difficult to get, and they're really driven by ultimately by wealth levels. So your communities in Chester County with significantly higher wealth levels than state college area school district will have AAAs, whereas other more rural districts will never be anywhere near the credit rating that you have. The last thing that is, I think, an important constraint on the ability to borrow for your capital projects is how much your community and yourself want to devote in your budget to debt service. It's one of many items that you need to spend money on, and that actual number, how many dollars of millage do we apply to debt service, is really about, in my mind at least, and this gets into my philosophical question. It's about allocating the use of that asset that you're building, that high school, to successive generations of school children and taxpayers. So while you may be able to pay for it out of your pocket, that means that past and current taxpayers are subsidizing future taxpayers. And so there's a balance between that. You may want to stretch the repayment of that over multiple generations of times. And I think that's the question that we're going to wrestle with as we go forward. How much, for how long, and what's the right level of debt service to support your programs and your facilities? Any questions about the philosophy part of it? So the next slide is a summary of where you are right now. These are all the financings that we've done together over the past since 2014. 2014 isn't on there because we refunded it with a series of 2020 bonds. You have about it's been 10 years, and I think my reading is getting worse. So you have about $185 million worth of debt outstanding. Importantly, only $124 million of that is subject to your debt limitation. So that's the difference there is the referendum debt. So we categorize referendum debt in Pennsylvania as electoral debt. And the $124 million that is not subject to the referendum is non-electoral debt. Those are significant concepts. And we'll show you a graph in a minute that I think we're going to spend a little bit of time on, because when I'm looking at how much capacity you have in your budget, I'm looking at it without regard to that referendum debt, because the referendum millage will go away when the referendum debt goes away. So I think in terms of your debt capacity, you want to look at the non-referendum or the non-electoral debt load that you have right now. I've also lined out what these were for in general, where they mature, when they're callable. In municipal bond land, you have a period of time when the bonds are not called or not allowed to be called, but after that time it can be called with no penalty. So that after that period of time, you get opportunities to refund your debt for savings if rates are low. And then it shows you the periodic payment of interest, which we call coupon, and then the effective yield on that money, which we call all-in cost. And the all-in cost is how we evaluate whether it's a good deal or not, and how we evaluate one financing against another one. So a little history of where and when you borrowed. The graph we show here is you'll probably see it come up again. It's called the MMD, or Municipal Market Data Graph. There every morning, or every afternoon rather, the capital markets publish a consensus of where interest rates are from 1 year to 30 years. And it changes every single day based on the same kind of factors that drive the Treasury market. And we picked the 10-year spot on that curve because it's roughly representative of where your borrowing costs would be on an average life 10-year financing. So a 20-year financing that matures, that half of which goes away, kind of like radioactivity, half of it goes away in 10 years. So we picked that as a generalized spot on the MMD curve. You can see where those rates were over the past 14 years, and I've highlighted where we were when we borrowed on each one of your financings. So the lowest one we hit was 2020 for obvious reasons. It was post-pandemic, and there was nothing going on in the markets, and it was a very good time to borrow money. But I think the general thing that we need to take from this is that all of your borrowings occurred in a fairly typical range, in that 2.5% to 3.5% margin. You can see that since 2020, we've had rates go up significantly. That's not a surprise to anybody. However, we've had a significant rally since November 1st of last year in our markets, so that while 2022 and 2023, a lot of borrowers were keeping their powder dry and not borrowing, there started to be very significant volume coming into the municipal markets in terms of new issuance at this point. So projects that had been on hold are now coming into the market to be financed. So it's going to be a better time to finance. So let's look quickly at debt service schedules. So this first chart shows all of the debt service on all of your debt. It starts out at about $18 million and goes down to about to a nominal amount in 2040, I believe that is. 2045. The items in red there are the referendum debt. So we take those out when I look at what capacity you have to borrow at the budget you're using today. The budget that you're using today for debt service is about $12 million a year. So as you can see, since that graph drops precipitously over time, everything that's in white there represents capacity. If you kept your millage in place for debt service to support $12 million of annual debt service per year, you would have, and you can hit the next one, by filling in with those orange bars, you're going to have, in the next one, about $50 million worth of, or $85 million worth of capacity, assuming a 4.5% interest rate, which is higher than where you'd be today. So just doing nothing and budgeting the same amount of debt service every year, you go a very significant part of the way to any new capital project. Above and beyond that, at the same assumed interest rate, it would probably cost you need to levy more millage for debt service than you are currently levying for debt service. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes?
It makes sense, but, and I know we're sort of not considering the referendum, but the referendum is in our current tax rate. So is what you're saying, when the referendum debt goes away, we would have to make a jump in the millage to offset
That's why.
going away? Like, is that what the orange assumes? That we would?
No.
Okay.
So the reason, if you go back 2 slides, there, go back one more. So you can see that your annual debt service, when you include the referendum, is significantly higher than that 12 million. So that's why I take it out.
Okay.
Because that referendum millage goes away when the referendum bonds go away. What doesn't go away is the debt service that you've applied to everything else. And so to be, I think, fair and to give you a good picture of what real incremental debt service is going to be, is I take that referendum debt service out.
Okay.
So anybody else on that? It's, going through this at a fairly rapid pace, and I know some of you have been with me before, and so one of the things that we looked at is what impacts additional borrowing has on your credit rating, and what they look at. Your ratings now are AA from S&P, and Moody's gives you the AA1. You've got a little bit of room to go up on with S&P. The last several financings we've used only Moody's because they do give you the higher rating, and that makes sense to me to use the one that gives you the better scorecard. We will look into whether or not and when it makes sense to go push S&P to a higher rating. Sometimes by virtue of the way their metrics work and the way their analytical process works, it won't make a lot of sense for us to push, because you may not. For instance, Moody's may give more weight to the stability that the university provides, whereas, and this is an example, it's not true, but S&P may say, well, you've got lower wealth levels, and that's indicative of having a lot of students that live in the district. So those are the kind of subtleties that we wrestle with as we're getting closer to a financing. But rating strengths, you have incredibly strong liquidity. Both in terms of your fund balances and your cash balances. You have incredible stability in your employment base because you have an institutional presence that's very strong here in the area. You have very strong wealth levels, even when you look at them without adjusting for the students. You have had an incredible run of good success with your financial team, and I'm really not just trying to remain in their good graces, but one of the things that if you read the rating reports over the last 10 years that they've always marveled at is kind of the diligence with which both your administration and your board, your previous boards, they take projecting this stuff seriously. I mean, there's nobody else that I know of that does 20-year projections. Now, we all know that projections are projections, but nobody really spends the amount of time and attention that State College Area School District does, and it really shows up, and it makes my job easier, and it makes the rating agency's job easier. So that's real strength. Like I said, what else we got? And I think we still can't, lose sight of the fact that this community decided to levy taxes upon itself and values education. That is one of those things that gets you over the hump to the highest levels of credit rating. Considerations for going forward. Obviously, we always look for the cheapest money, which is other people's money and free money. All right? There's nothing that I can compete with other than I can't compete with free money, which let's find as much of that as we can. In the past, the district has used energy conservation grants and solar grants and interesting LEED grants to apply toward projects. So that's the kind of things we'll be looking at. PlanCon, when, as, and if it's available, is one. The Inflation Reduction Act that was signed 2 years ago believe me, you don't want to read it. It's really terrible, but it does have a lot of energy, particularly energy related and energy efficiency related items in it that will allow for example, tax credits that are payable directly to you instead of to an investor. That's a big, powerful tool, and hopefully if we look through that, we might be able to use it. The other thing that's going to drive a lot of the timing and amounts and everything else is you're embarking on another facilities-wide master plan. As Joe and Randy are going to tell you later on, that's really kind of the most important thing to drive what, how, when, and how much. And again, we're going to talk as you get further down the line of identifying what's a priority for your physical plant. We'll talk about how you do it, what it makes sense. Sometimes a bank loan is the best idea. Sometimes a bond issue is a better idea. And so we evaluate both whenever we get close to a financing. And again, short-term borrowing versus long-term borrowing, temporary borrowing versus permanent borrowing. It's really driven by interest rates and what's achievable in the market at the time you're getting there. And we started out this talking about, kind of the esoterica and things, trying to avoid getting too far over our skis. I'm a skier, so I like to use that one. The very clear instructions from 2014 were, Tom, we just want to do regular old financing. And I can tell you that if we go forward, we're just going to do regular old, what we call plain vanilla financing. None of the esoterica that you've seen in the past. So, and then again, the other thing is, where is inflation on construction costs? Mm-hmm. So that'll be borne out when you get closer toward finding out what you're building and how much it's going to cost. So, any questions? Yes, sir.
Peter.
Yeah, thank you very much. And
nice to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you. Can you just say a little bit more about the importance of the 20-year projection? You put some emphasis on that, why that matters for you. I think it would be really great for the public to understand the importance of doing those projections.
It's important because it gives you some guidepost into what you're going to be doing. And it's not just the projections, it's things like investment policy, fund balance policy, and everything else that you decide to do. The kind of self-managing policies and procedures that you enact over time are very important. But particularly for the projections, when you're managing to projections, you're more able to adjust your timing, your amounts, and your amortization of your financing based on real-time inputs, right? So let's say you're getting ready to do a $20 million financing and you get the bids in and it's now a $30 million financing. Because you've got projections and you're facile with your projections, you're going to know how much you're likely to throw in terms of cash there, or millage, or extending amortization. So you've already analyzed those things. It also acts as a retrospective tool. So whenever Randy and Joe and I talk about what's coming next, I go and pull up Donna Watson's email from 2019 about all the projects and the projections and everything else. I said, okay, there's been change between 2019 and 2024. What do those changes look like? And I have a very clear record of and I can in 30 minutes look at the spreadsheets the 2019 spreadsheet and the new spreadsheet and say, okay, here are the 3 changes. Why are they doing this? And so we have a conversation. We know why you've decided to do something differently, and then I can take that to the rating agencies, and they have the same ability to look back to the previous projections. I can't oversell how important that is. It's very important because most people don't do that. Most borrowers aren't that savvy.
So it's just like a transparency issue?
It's transparency. It's diligent financial management. It's all of those things.
Pattern of decision-making?
It's decision-making. I mean, my wife and I are geeks enough that we do this for our own thing, but not to the level you guys do it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Yeah, Aaron.
Just a quick question. You mentioned the money available from other sources, other people's money. Are you or your firm is that the group that we use to find those other funds, or is that something do we rely on?
Are you talking about the recent contract about the Inflation Reduction Act? That we
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, how do we identify that?
Well, we typically will know what's going on in terms of free money in most of the spaces, but we're not. I mean, we'll probably get more information from Randy and Joe and your team because they're going to all the conventions. We only go to some of the conventions where people talk about these things. We're not usually grant writers. We've done it in the past, but it's not our core business. Our core business is when you're ready to borrow a large amount of money, we can in 90 days get you from we need $20 million to $20 million in the bank.
Oh, okay.
So we can do. That's what we do. We find other people's money that's not necessarily free.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, and historically, it's been, I don't know if Tom was aware that we contracted with Baker Tilly specifically about the Inflation Reduction
Right.
Act. So we did kind of sign that contract
Yeah.
in the last month or so
That
to
goes
target that particular bucket of money. In the past, some of the things that Tom referred to were things like there was grants for solar panels for some of the elementary buildings. That was DCEC, I always get it wrong.
DCED.
DCED grant money. Crabtree happened to know about that one and brought that to our attention. And some other PlanCon things came from the architects when we were in process of talking and planning. So sometimes it does come from a couple different directions. Somebody who has their eye on things from the state level versus, Peter knowing things. Sometimes there's some ties in the community to sustainability things where we might get an alert that there's funding somewhere else. So it is a little bit piecemeal. There's no one approach to get your hands on all of
as
it.
a new member, I'm just trying to understand, like, your role with the finance team.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the role. We tend to be the person who takes everybody else's work and ties it up in a big bow, and then here you go. We're not the ones with the
You don't have
bag
a
of
big
money.
check or
No,
anything?
that's the underwriter.
All right.
Those are the underwriters. That's why we take a lot of time and attention to hire those folks.
Sounds good. Any other questions for Tom? Okay.
Thanks, Tom, for coming.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
it.
Good to see everybody again.
You too. Thanks so much.
So-
I know it's been a long evening, but I know we're still a ways till the end, and so I think we're going to take a 5-minute recess and come right back, okay? Thank you. Yeah, so we're adjourned for 5 minutes. just want the record to reflect all the board members are at the table.
Going on. Come on.
CNET, are you ready? All right.
These people.
I'd like to reconvene the board. Still a committee of the whole board meeting for February 5th for State College Area School District. So we wrapped up finance committee reports and we're going to move on to facilities and grounds. And I'll hand it back again to Mr.
You
Brown.
did not wrap up
No, we
finance.
still-
Oh, I'm sorry.
Capacity.
I was
We-
thinking that was, yeah.
No, you're fine. We just have a brief presentation that Joe has prepared and we wanted to share with you. It still is about debt capacity and capital investment,
You're
but
right.
it relates it more to the district. So Joe, go ahead.
Sorry.
Over the years, I've learned that to keep presentations to 10 slides or less, and for accounting presentations, even shorter is appreciated. So we'll start and going from there. So we just want to do a follow-up to what Tom was just talking about, Mr. Beckett, about the district's debt capacity, capital reinvestment, and the future path we may go on. So for the capital reinvestment, funding of debt service and capital reinvestment is one of the factors that impact debt service and that impact that. In addition, capital reinvestment costs associated with maintaining facilities. This is where the debt capacity and capital reinvestment really differs from, let's say, your home mortgage, and thinking about it that way. Your home mortgage is payment for something that has occurred, a transaction has occurred. You've purchased your home and you will pay off the mortgage. But when you get into capital reinvestment in long-range planning and debt capacity discussions, then you get into discussions with future purchases, which are subject to inflation, which are subject to price pressures, or various other factors that are unknown at this time. So this slide, I really wanted to go through and discuss it. So if you look at the orange line is really what we have Projection Master based upon. So we have debt capacity around the same level, and then it levels out with either A, the debt service repayments, the debt payments schedule that we have on existing debts, or planned transfers to the capital reserve fund. But if you look at the blue dotted line, that is if you took the same percentage of your expenditures in 2015 to 2023 on average, and you applied that to the same expenditures with the percentage inflation going forward, that would be where your debt reinvestment or your capital reinvestment would need to be. Why is that important? It is because you could be starting to fund a gap, or not fund a gap between the thought process of we are funding at the current level of debt or the current level of experienced cost of capital reinvestment that we have historically had over the last few years. And that is the debt paying out there. You saw on Tom's chart where he had $85 million as additional debt capacity. Well, that went your entire debt capacity at that level of level funding that we have in that orange line through 2055 in that ballpark. That basically says, okay, after that $85 million, you have no more projects that you are basically planning in that debt capacity realm. So how do we move forward? We think we need to inform the debt capacity and the capital reinvestment discussion. How do we inform that? A key component is a district-wide master facilities plan. And then also information from your facilities director, Mike, which would be an inventory of the facilities with estimated reinvestment dates and costs. That should be developed. You know, when do we expect these buildings to need either substantial renovation or capital replacement? Stakeholders should have an understanding that today's costs do not equate to future costs. If you just have to look back to the construction costs from 2018, 2019, I think, when the elementary schools were redone, to where they are today. And then stakeholders should, in addition to budgeting for future capital reinvestment, plan for costs associated with other long-term expenses, such as growth, strategic priorities, etc. Some of these buildings, when they were built, Park Forest Middle School really did not consider the digital age that we are in now. So now you've got to invest into those types of programs. So what is the roadmap? first thing, we're not talking about dollars or allocation dollars or anything like that. We're just trying to raise awareness in terms of debt capacity. $11 million in 2023, 2024 dollars does not equate to $11 million in 2050 dollars. Assessing the results of the district-wide master facilities plan, there will need to be prioritization taking place. There will need to be an assessment of, a realistic assessment of what we need to do to reinvest in these properties to keep a functional building going forward so that we won't need to go forward. And this ties back to what occurred in the referendum debt. We needed to get a referendum to pass to have the borrowing capabilities necessary for the high school. Working with district staff to inform long-range funding strategy for future capital projects. And then implementing a sustainable funding strategy that meets the long-term needs of the districts, including their debt capacity. And then finally, this is not anything that lives in a vacuum. It's not something, hey, we're done, and it's a once and done. It is something that needs to be reviewed, assessed after implemented on a regular basis, just to make sure that the roadmap that we're on actually meets the strategic and capital reinvestment strategies and goals of the district. So at the end, this was just more of a reinforcement of the information that Mr. Beckett had told you just a few minutes ago, and I just wanted to follow up on that and see if there were any questions.
Thanks, Joe. That's really helpful. Kind of overview. Any questions for Joe? I'm sorry, I didn't mean to skip that part.
That's all good.
I had checked my box and forgot that the whole thing wasn't done. All right. Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now I think we can move on to facilities and grounds. And so we'll start with Mountain Ending Elementary project and district-wide facility master plan updates.
Correct. And as Mr. Fisher, joins me at the table, Mr. Straub and Mr. Badia are online from Crabtree Rohrbach. So we're going to go ahead and start with the materials that they've presented for our update this evening. All right. So Jeff and John, are you ready?
I'm here, Randy.
All right, we're on the agenda.
Dr. Crevecore.
Yes.
Dr. Demo.
Yes.
Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Okay, that item is passed. Moving on to action items. Agenda item 8A is a motion to approve the purchase of Spirit Box vending machine for the Roar Store. This is shown in attachment 8A. Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
All right, that's been moved and seconded. Questions or discussion?
Just fantastic.
Okay. Any public comment?
No.
We'll have a roll call vote.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Dr. Buck.
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore.
Yes.
Dr. Demo.
Yes.
Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Dr. Vader.
Yes, that item is passed. Agenda item 8B is a motion to approve the purchase of E-rate networking equipment as shown in attachment 8B. I have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or discussion? Any public comment?
No.
We'll have a roll call.
Dr. Buck.
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore.
Yes.
Dr. Demo.
Yes.
Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Okay, that item is passed. Agenda item 8C is a motion to approve an easement with Ferguson Township for a flashing school zone sign as shown in attachment 8C.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Questions or discussion? Public comment on this item?
No.
Have a roll call, please.
Dr. Crevecore.
Yes.
Dr. Demo.
Yes.
Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Dr. Buck.
Yes.
Okay, that item is passed. Agenda item 8D is a motion to approve the purchase of a pole vault value pack shown in attachment 8D.
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or discussion on this item? Any public comment?
No.
We'll have a roll call, please.
Dr. Demo.
Yes.
Mr. Colby.
Yes.
Dr. Miller.
Yes.
Dr. Anderson.
Yes.
Dr. Bader.
Yes.
Ms. Brandt.
Yes.
Dr. Buck.
Yes.
Dr. Crevecore.
Yes.
Okay, that item is passed. That concludes our agenda this evening. Looking ahead to future meetings, they are listed in detail, and I will leave it to the public to read them. And with that, I'm going to adjourn tonight's meeting. Thanks, everybody, for all your late participation.